A very warm welcome to you. Thank you for choosing to spend your time here in this quiet space, a small sanctuary crafted for gentle rest. This story has been created with a simple hope of helping you find a little more ease, to let the day fall away softly and allow a peaceful contentment to settle in its place. If this tale brings you comfort, a simple like, a kind subscription, or a quiet comment of appreciation helps this sanctuary reach others who might be seeking it. Tonight, we will be visiting the Arboretum of Slow Light, a place of profound peace. Prepare to be enchanted by an ancient orchard where colossal trees absorb the starlight and glow with a soft, warm luminescence. Here, you can find true respite and stillness, wrapped in the gentle hum of whispering leaves and the comforting scent of honeyed pollen. Chapter 1, The Gate of Woven Branches. A quietness begins here, where the well-trod path gives way to soft, dark earth. It is a quiet that you can feel, a gentle pressure in the air that asks for nothing, and in its asking for nothing, receives all of your attention. Finn felt it settle over their shoulders like a familiar, well-loved cloak, the kind that smells faintly of wood smoke and dried leaves. The journey here had been a long and placid one, over rolling hills of muted green and alongside brooks that murmured simple, one-word stories to the smooth pebbles in their beds. Yet, this stillness was different. It was older, deeper, a silence that had been steeping for centuries, like tea in a forgotten pot, growing only richer and more fragrant with time. The air itself carried a new scent, a fragrance of damp, fertile soil and a sweet, unfamiliar floral note that was both clean and deeply calming. It was the perfume of a place that was wholly content in its own existence, a world unto itself. Ahead, where the path seemed to end, stood an archway, a gate woven from the living branches of two ancient trees. Their limbs reached across the gap, their fingers of twig and leaf intertwined in a patient, ages-long embrace. There was no door to open, no lock to turn. The gate was an invitation, a threshold into a different quality of peace. As Finn passed beneath the arch of living wood, a soft frisson, like the touch of a cool feather, traced a line down their spine. It was the feeling of leaving one world and entering another. The ambient sounds of the outer lands, the distant call of a bird, or the sigh of wind in a far-off copse faded completely, replaced by a profound and gentle hush. Inside, the world was bathed in a soft, perpetual twilight, a luminescence that did not seem to come from the sky, but rather to emanate from the very air and earth itself. A gentle glow that promised safety and rest. Before them, the ground sloped gently down into a wide, shallow valley, and it was filled as far as the eye could see with trees. These were not ordinary trees. They were colossal, their trunks wide as cottages, their canopies so vast they created a second sky of overlapping leaves. From within their bark, from the very wood itself, came a soft internal light. It was a warm, buttery glow, like the memory of sunlight that pulsed with a slow, steady, and entirely peaceful rhythm. This was the source of the valley's twilight, a forest that made its own gentle day. A figure emerged from the lee of one of the great trees, moving with a slowness that seemed perfectly in tune with the pulsing light of the forest. The person was wrapped in layers of soft, earth-toned fabric, and they carried a small earthenware mug that steamed gently in the cool air. As they drew closer, Finn could see a kind face, weathered by time and tranquility, and eyes that held the same deep, abiding quiet as the valley. The figure stopped a respectful few paces away and offered a soft, welcoming smile. "Welcome," the keeper said, their voice as soft as the moss underfoot. "I am Maris. You have come a long way. The path was kind to you, I trust." It was a statement more than a question, an expression of the Arboretum's own gentle nature extending out to its visitors. Morris held out the mug. "A little spiced cider. It is warm. It helps one settle into the quiet of the place." Finn took the cup, its ceramic warmth seeping instantly into their chilled fingers. The cider smelled of baked apples and a hint of cinnamon, a scent of pure comfort. They took a sip, and the warmth spread through their chest, a gentle, liquid bloom of peace. Maris gestured with a slow nod towards a small structure nestled amongst the exposed roots of a truly enormous tree nearby. "Your cottage is waiting. The largest of the roots keeps the drafts away, and the light from the bark will keep you company through the night." The cottage was small and simple, built of a pale, smooth wood that seemed to drink in the surrounding light. Inside, it was a single round room, impeccably clean and deeply comforting. A thick, soft quilt lay folded on a low bed, and bundles of dried herbs hung from the curved rafters, filling the space with the gentle scents of lavender and chamomile. There was no fireplace, for none was needed. The ambient warmth from the great tree outside, whose glowing bark pressed against one wall, kept the air at a perfect, pleasant temperature, and its soft light filled the room, casting no sharp shadows, only gentle gradations of peace. Finn set the cider cup on a small, three-legged stool, the only furniture besides the bed, and felt a wave of profound gratitude wash over them. They were here, they were safe, and a deep, dreamless rest was already calling their name. Chapter 2. Learning the Light. The first morning in the Arboretum arrived without a dawn. The gentle ambient light simply was, as it always had been, a constant, unwavering glow that held none of the urgency of a rising sun. Finn awoke feeling as though they had slept for 100 years, a deep and restorative slumber that had unknotted tensions they had not even realized they were carrying. The air in the cottage was still and sweet with the scent of herbs, and through the single circular window they could see the soft butter-yellow light of the great tree, a silent, watchful companion. Outside, Maris was waiting, holding not a tool of work, but a simple soft cloth of undyed wool. The days that followed unfolded with a gentle, unhurried rhythm, each one a lesson in quiet observation and simple, mindful action. Maris did not teach with words so much as with presence. They would lead Finn along the winding paths of dark, soft soil, their footfalls making no sound on the thick carpet of fallen, silvery leaves that covered the ground. The work of the Arboretum, as Finn came to understand it, was not one of labor, but of care, of gentle communion. The most important task, Maris explained in their soft voice, was polishing the leaves of the lumenwood trees. Maris gave Finn a small pot of sweet-smelling oil and a cloth of their own. They demonstrated on a low-hanging leaf, a magnificent thing the size of a dinner plate, its surface a mosaic of pale green and gold veins that pulsed with their own faint light. Maris wiped the leaf with slow circular motions, and as they did, the light within it seemed to brighten, to grow warmer and clearer, as if in gratitude. The act was meditative, requiring a quiet focus that left no room for stray thoughts. Finn found a profound satisfaction in it, in the smooth glide of the oiled cloth, the faint, clean scent of the oil, and the visible response of the tree's gentle light. They spent hours this way, moving from one tree to the next, each a unique individual. Maris would point out the subtle differences in their light. The younger saplings gave off a pale, creamy white light, cool and shy. The middle-aged trees, the backbone of the Arboretum, glowed with a spectrum of warm yellows and soft peaches, their light casting a comfortable aura. And the ancients, the colossal patriarchs and matriarchs of the valley, glowed with a deep, rosy gold, a light that felt ancient and full of a quiet, accumulated wisdom. Finn learned to see these nuances, to feel the different qualities of warmth on their skin as they worked. One afternoon, as they were polishing the leaves of a tree that gave off a particularly lovely shade of soft apricot, Maris spoke of the light's nature. "It is not a fire," Maris murmured, their hand resting on the warm bark. "It does not consume. It is a quietness made visible. The tree breathes in the starlight at night, and this," they gestured to the gentle glow, "is its long, slow exhalation." The image was so simple, so beautiful, it settled in Finn's mind and stayed there, a perfect encapsulation of the peace of the place. The paths they walked were as much a part of the Arboretum as the trees. They were not paved or forced, but seemed to have been worn into the landscape by centuries of slow, gentle footsteps. They meandered, never taking a direct route, encouraging a slower pace, a walker's contemplation. Sometimes the path would lead to a smooth, worn wooden bench placed in a spot where the light of two different species of tree would mingle, creating a beautiful, dappled effect on the ground. Finn and Maris would often sit on one of these benches, sharing a flask of cool water and a comfortable silence. In this shared quiet, Finn began to notice the smaller wonders of the Arboretum, the way a single drop of dew on a spider's web would catch the lumenwood light and glow like a tiny captured star. The soft, velvety texture of the silver moss that grew in thick cushions on the northern side of the trunks. The way the air felt cooler and smelled of damp stone near the small, serene pools of still water that collected in natural hollows. The world had shrunk to the size of this valley, and in its shrinking had become infinitely more detailed and rich. The routine was always the same, yet it was never monotonous. Each day was a slight variation on a theme of peace, polishing leaves, walking the soft paths, sitting in quiet observation, sharing a simple meal of bread and cheese and fruit on the porch of Maris's own cottage. Finn's hands grew soft from the oil, and their mind grew quiet from the gentle repetition. They were learning more than how to care for a forest. They were learning how to be cared for by one, how to accept its gift of stillness, and how to breathe out long and slow in time with the light. Chapter 3. The Murmuring Pollen. As Finn's time in the Arboretum lengthened, the rhythm of the place became their own. They could feel the subtle shift in the quality of the light that marked the transition from the Arboretum's long, gentle day to its deep, quiet night, a time when the stars would become visible through the canopy, their cold, distant light a contrast to the warm, living glow of the trees below. It was during one of these slow, lingering twilights that Maris led Finn toward the heart of the valley, to a place they had not yet been. The ancients are waking for the evening, Maris said softly, their voice full of a gentle reverence. They walked a path that spiraled inwards towards the center of the Arboretum, where the very oldest of the lumenwood trees resided. These were the true giants of the valley, their trunks so wide it would take 10 people holding hands to encircle them. Their bark was gnarled and deeply fissured, like the faces of kind, sleeping elders, and the light they emitted was a deep, calming rose gold that seemed to hum with a quiet, ancient power. The air here was warmer and carried a thick, sweet scent, like honey left to warm in the sun. Finn and Maris settled onto a single long bench made from the fallen limb of one of the ancients, its surface worn to a satin smoothness by centuries of use. As the last vestiges of indirect daylight faded from the sky above the canopy, a change began. From the high, unseen branches of the colossal trees, something began to drift down. At first, it was just a few sparks, like fireflies waking from a long slumber. But soon it became a slow, silent cascade of softly glowing motes, a gentle snowfall of warm, living light. It was the pollen Maris had spoken of, and it was more beautiful than Finn could have imagined. The pollen drifted with an impossible slowness, each mote a tiny, self-contained orb of rosy golden light. They did not fall so much as meander downwards, catching invisible currents in the still air, swirling in gentle eddies and spirals. There was no sound, only the profound visual spectacle of a silent, luminous shower. The air grew thick with the scent of warm honey and chamomile, a deeply soporific fragrance that seemed to travel directly to the center of Finn's being, loosening a knot of tension at the base of their neck they had carried for years. The glowing particles began to settle, blanketing every surface in a fine, shimmering dust. It coated the broad leaves, making them glow even more brightly. It dusted the silver moss, turning its soft tufts into miniature glowing landscapes. It settled on the smooth surface of the bench and on the sleeves of Finn's own tunic, a harmless, warm covering of light. Finn reached out a hand, palm upturned, and let the pollen collect there, a small, shimmering pool of warmth that felt wonderfully, peacefully alive. Where the pollen touched the ground, A gentle warmth began to radiate upwards. Finn could feel it through the soles of their boots, a comforting heat seeping into their feet, as if the earth itself were sighing with contentment. They leaned back on the bench, letting the full weight of their body rest against the smooth ancient wood, and felt their own limbs grow heavy and wonderfully relaxed. The pollen was not just a sight to behold, it was a physical sensation, a blanket of peace that was both seen and felt. Maris sat beside them, a figure of perfect stillness, their eyes closed in a soft, serene smile on their face. They were not watching the spectacle, but simply experiencing it, breathing it in. Finn followed their example, closing their own eyes, focusing on the sensations, the warmth rising from the earth, the gentle weight of the pollen settling on their clothes, the thick, sweet air filling their lungs with every slow, easy breath. The quiet hum of the tree's light seemed to vibrate in the very bones of the bench, a low, resonant frequency that traveled up Finn's spine and quieted their mind completely. They sat for what could have been minutes or hours. Time had lost its meaning in this place of gentle magic. There was only the present moment, a perfect, unbroken tableau of peace. The world was reduced to warmth, to the scent of honey, to the feeling of letting go. When Finn finally opened their eyes, the pollen shower had slowed to a few final drifting sparks. The ground, the trees, and the air itself seemed to hum with a sated, tranquil energy. Finn felt a deep, profound sense of rest, a stillness that had seeped into their very marrow. They had witnessed the heart of the Arboretum, and in its gentle, silent spectacle, they had found a piece of their own quiet heart as well. Chapter 4. A Silence Shared. In the days that followed the spectacle of the drifting pollen, a new layer of peace settled over Finn. It was a quietness that came not from the absence of sound, but from the presence of a deep, resonant harmony. The Arboretum was not silent. It was filled with a chorus of gentle noises. The soft, melodic hum of the silver-veined saplings, the almost imperceptible creak of ancient branches shifting, the breath-like sigh of the wind in the highest leaves. Finn came to recognize these sounds as the Arboretum's voice, a constant, soothing murmur that spoke of stability and timeless peace. The greatest comfort, however, was found in the silence shared with Maris. They developed a comfortable, unspoken routine. In the late afternoon, after the simple work of the day was done, Finn would walk the soft, mossy path to Maris's cottage. It was much like their own, though larger, with shelves carved into the thick wooden walls, holding a collection of smooth, pale stones, interestingly shaped pieces of fallen bark, and earthenware pots filled with more of the fragrant herbs that scented the valley. Maris would be sitting on the small porch, a steaming teapot on a low table between two simple wooden chairs. Finn would take the empty seat, and Maris would pour them both a cup without a word. The tea was different each day. Sometimes it was a pale green, tasting of mint and new leaves. Other times it was a deep, reddish brew, fragrant with dried berries and a hint of spice. They would sip the warm liquid, their hands wrapped around the comforting warmth of the mugs, and simply be. Their gazes would drift out over the arboretum, a landscape of soft, living light and gentle shadows. They watched the slow, constant pulse of the lumenwood trees, a rhythm so steady and calm, it felt like the heartbeat of the world itself. There was no need for conversation. The shared experience was enough. The warmth of the tea, the beauty of the view, the feeling of the solid chair beneath them, the profound, abiding quiet of the valley. In this shared stillness, Finn's own thoughts began to quieten. The usual chatter of the mind, the planning and the remembering, simply fell away, leaving behind a clear, placid surface. They noticed the way the rosy light of a nearby ancient tree blended with the buttery glow of a younger one, creating a soft, peach-colored haze in the air between them. They listened to the layered hums of the saplings, a chord of pure tranquility. One afternoon, a small downy feather drifted from the canopy and landed silently on the porch railing between them. It was a soft, dove-gray color, perfect and unmarked. Finn and Maris both looked at it, then at each other, and a small, understanding smile passed between them. It was a tiny, perfect gift from the quiet world they inhabited. Maris reached out a gentle finger and touched the feather, then left it where it lay. The moment was simple, and yet it felt profound, a shared recognition of the small, gentle beauties that filled their days. Finn became aware of their own body in a way they hadn't before. They noticed the easy rhythm of their own breathing, slow and deep, perfectly in sync with the pulsing light of the trees. They felt the absence of tension in their shoulders and jaw, a tightness that had been a constant companion for so long they had ceased to notice its presence. Now, its absence was a tangible feeling of lightness, of ease. They felt a pleasant weight in their limbs, a sense of being securely and comfortably grounded to the earth. The air, filled with the clean scent of leaves and damp soil, felt nourishing with every inhalation. This was the true magic of the Arboretum. It wasn't just the glowing trees or the drifting pollen. It was the way the place invited you to simply be present. It slowed you down to its own languid pace, and in that slowing, it allowed you to notice the world and yourself in a new way. It was a peace that was not sought, but simply accepted, a gift freely offered by the ancient, gentle spirit of the valley. As the light outside began to deepen into the rose-gold hues of evening, Maris finally spoke, their voice a soft murmur that did not break the silence but became a part of it. "The quiet holds you well," they observed. Finn simply nodded, a feeling of deep gratitude swelling in their chest. There was nothing else to say. The silence, full and comfortable and shared between them, had already said everything. Chapter 5. The Gift of a Glowing Seed. The day Finn knew they must leave arrived as gently as any other in the Arboretum. There was no internal struggle, no sense of regret, only a quiet acknowledgement that the time had come. The peace they had found here was not a fleeting thing to be hoarded, but a deep, resonant calm that had become a part of them, something they could now carry with them out into the wider world. The Arboretum had not been a destination, but a tuning fork, and now Finn's own heart hummed with its gentle, steady note. They spent the morning on one last slow walk with Maris, traversing the familiar winding paths. The Arboretum seemed to glow with a particular warmth this morning, the light from the trees soft and embracing. The air was rich with the scent of moss and bark and the faint, lingering sweetness of the previous evening's pollen. Finn touched the smooth, warm bark of a favorite tree, one that gave off a light the color of pale buttermilk, and offered it a silent, heartfelt thank you. The tree's light seemed to pulse a little more brightly in response, a quiet farewell. They returned to Maris's cottage, where a simple meal of fresh bread, soft cheese, and sliced apples was laid out on the porch table. They ate in their usual companionable silence, a silence that was now filled with years of unspoken friendship and shared understanding. The quiet of the valley felt like a warm embrace, a final gentle blessing on Finn's journey. The feeling was not one of sadness at leaving, but one of deep, abiding fullness, a being so filled with peace that there was no room for anything else. When the meal was finished, Maris went inside their cottage for a moment and returned with a small object held carefully in their cupped hands. They opened their palms to reveal a single smooth seed about the size of a small plum. It was a dark, polished brown, and from within it, a faint, warm light pulsed with the same slow, steady rhythm as the great trees themselves. A seed from one of the ancients, Maris said softly, their voice filled with a gentle gravity. It will not grow into a great tree in the outer world. The soil is not the same, but it will always hold its light. Maris placed the glowing seed into Finn's open palm. It was surprisingly heavy, and its surface was wonderfully smooth and warm, like a stone that had been lying in the sun all day. The gentle, rhythmic pulse of its light was a tangible thing, a tiny living heartbeat against Finn's skin. It was the essence of the Arboretum, a concentration of all its peace and all its quiet magic, small enough to be held in one hand. It is a reminder, Maris continued, their kind eyes meeting Finn's, a reminder that the quiet is always there within you. You need only to stop and listen for it. Finn closed their hand around the seed, its warmth and its gentle pulse a profound comfort. They felt a wave of gratitude so deep it left them breathless. They had come to this place seeking respite and had been given a gift beyond measure. They slipped the precious seed into a soft leather pouch that hung around their neck, where it rested against their heart, a small secret warmth. There were no grand farewells, no tearful goodbyes. Such things had no place in the gentle rhythm of the Arboretum. Finn simply placed a hand over their heart, where the seed now lay, and gave Maris a look of pure, unadorned thankfulness. Maris responded with a slow, knowing nod. Walking back toward the gate of woven branches, Finn felt a sense of completeness. The world outside the Arboretum no longer seemed like a separate place, but simply an extension of this one, a place where they could now carry this same stillness. As they passed under the living archway, the familiar sounds of the wider world slowly filtered back in. the distant bird song, the rustle of ordinary leaves in the wind. The sounds were no longer a distraction, but simply a different kind of music. Finn paused and reached a hand up to the pouch at their chest, feeling the steady, warm pulse of the seed against their heart. They were not leaving the Arboretum behind. They were simply taking a small piece of its light with them, a quiet glow to illuminate their path forward.